President Abdullah Shahid, Secretary General Antonio Guterres, distinguished delegates. Standing before you again in 2 years at the UN General Assembly, I am keenly reminded of the precious normal daily life that had been lost. Guided by the leadership of President Shahid, who assumed the presidency of the 76th session of the UNGA, I hope the international community will gather its wisdom and work in partnership to tackle global crises. For the past 5 years, Secretary General Guterres has worked tirelessly to revitalize and reform the UN, and I offer my sincere congratulations and respect to you, Mr. Secretary General, for your re-election victory. I am most certain that you will make greater strides in the key agenda dearest to your heart, such as peacekeeping operations, climate change, response, and SDGs. I hope that the UNGA session this year will impart to the people of the world a message of hope that we will emerge victorious from the pandemic and climate crisis and attain sustainable development. Mr. President, Mr. Secretary General, and distinguished delegates, humans by nature build and live together in communities. Resorting to collective intellect and mutual aid in those communities, humanity has prevailed over a myriad of infectious diseases and lived in coexistence. The COVID-19 pandemic will also be surmounted by the love of humanity and solidarity, and at its center, the UN shall stand. In our fight against the coronavirus, borders were crossed to share genomic information, vaccines were successfully launched through close collaboration, and therapeutics are also being developed at a rapid pace. A triumph over COVID-19 demands us to break down barriers. The horizons of our lives and thoughts have extended from villages to countries, and from countries to the entire planet. This, I reckon, is the coming of an era of global community. In this era of global community, we employ one another and work with one another. We gather our wisdom together and we act together. To date, countries with advanced economy and more power have taken the lead in the world. Yet, from now, all nations are called upon to move in tandem with their best possible goals and approaches in pursuing sustainable development. As the pivot of such cooperation and action, the UN will be asked to take on a larger role than now. Founders of the UN, having gone through the scourge of 2 world wars, aspired to establish an order for world peace. Now, the UN is requested to recommend a new set of rules and goals as it ushers in this era of global community. To facilitate mutually beneficial cooperation within the framework of multilateral order, the UN must become an institution that builds trust among nations, an institution that brings together the commitment and capabilities of the community of nations to galvanize action. The Republic of Korea will take an active part in the international order of solidarity and cooperation to be led by the UN. Korea, a newly independent state after World War II, was able to build a democracy and a strong economy with the support of the UN and the international community. Now, a responsible member of the international community, Korea is determined to step up its efforts to help countries prosper together and embrace one another. Korea will take the lead in putting forward a vision for partnership and coexistence that can be shared by developed and developing countries alike. A task most urgent for the global community is delivering an inclusive recovery from the coronavirus crisis. Low-income families, the elderly, and other vulnerable groups were left most widely exposed to the threat of the virus. Socioeconomic problems built up over the years were brought to the fore by the pandemic. Poverty and hunger have deepened. From income, jobs to education, gaps widened across gender, class, and countries. The UN has been calling for reducing such inequalities already for years by putting forth the Sustainable Development Goals for 2030. Now, it is incumbent upon all members of the UN to work with greater vigor to realize the SDGs. Korea will stand together to help all people in every country live without the fear of coronavirus. We will deliver on our $200 million pledge to COVAX AMC. As one of the global vaccine production hubs, we will strive for an equitable and expeditious supply of COVID-19 vaccines. Korea will also stand at the vanguard of the endeavors to achieve the SDGs. In a bid to defeat the pandemic and make a new leap forward, we are pushing ahead with the Korean New Deal policy. Notably, we are reinforcing